Hi, everyone. Let's see if we can hear me. Yeah. Hi. I'm going to let the last of you find your seats. But let's get started. So little time, so much to do, right? We are super excited to see all of you here. I can barely see you in the back, but I hope you can hear as well. We're going to talk today about a passion topic of ours. Or maybe a topic where our passions actually meet, which is really cool about working with data and analytics these days. We have to make people with different interests actually come together to create magic together. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we drive value using data at ICA? ICA was founded more than 100 years ago. Yep, more than 100 years ago. And knowing what our customers want has been at the heart of this company for that entire time. But how we know what our customers want have, of course, changed. And quite rapidly so in the past few years with the rise of technology and data and now recently AI. So how do we actually transform this 100-year-old company to cater for the new needs and to use data in order to actually do that? So let's look at that today. But first things first. My name is Annie van Heijne. I work as a manager for something that we call data and analytics transformation. And what I actually do at work, I'm going to tell you a little bit about shortly. But my background mainly is within business transformation, you could say. So how do we do things better? And data and analytics was originally basically how I achieved that. So what type of strategy should we have, or what new businesses can we find based on analysis of data? And then I started working at ICA, also on the business side, but was very close to analytics since that was sort of where the truth was, where the foundation for my work was. So after a year or two, I actually started working within the analytics function, talking about still what can we use data for? Where should we use data and analysis? And what strategies should we build based on that? And how do we connect the two worlds, basically? So that's me. Maaret.
I was hoping that maybe someone is curious about me as well. So I work as a data governance manager at ICA Sweden. I've been there since halfway 2020, started in the middle of pandemics. But if I were to reflect back on where do I come from, I would still say that there are very few educations today that lead to a data management training or occupation. So you kind of have to have a different kind of background, and mine is in finance. So I actually have a finance master's from the Uppsala University. And having worked in finance for a number of years, being a mass consumptor or consumer of data, and quite often just wondering why is the data so bad? And whose job is it really to make sure that the data is correct? I started asking around that question and well, I found nothing. So apparently it's no one's job to make sure that we have good data. So obviously that led me to thinking, probably Googling around how do you fix good data. And I discovered a whole new world of data management. And having spent quite a few hours of, well, complaining about the bad data around strategically located coffee machines, that finally opened up the door to data management as a profession. So in 2015, I started working as a global master data manager. My first task was to Google what the heck is master data, but that's another story. Somewhere down the line, it actually led me here, and now I would dare to say that I am a professional in this topic. So I dare to stay and get myself on the stage and actually give you some insights of what we do.
Cool. So what is ICA? I told you that we maybe not Maaret and I, we're not that old, but ICA as a company was founded more than 100 years ago in 1917. But ICA-gruppen today is a universe of companies. And what do we do? Well, we're mainly in groceries, mainly in Sweden, but we also have operations in the Baltics. We have a pharmacy in Apotek Hjärtat. We have a bank, we have an insurance company, and we have a real estate company. But what we really do is, with all of these different companies, we try to make every day a little easier for our customer, because we meet the customer several times a week, actually. And we can really have an impact on people's everyday lives in these interactions. So that's what we do. And today we're going to deep dive into our biggest business, which is ICA Sweden, and our grocery business then here in Sweden, and talk about how we work with data and analytics there. So like I told you in the beginning, knowing what the customer wants has been at the heart of our company for a very, very long time. But the usage of data is something that we've focused a lot more on, obviously, in the past few years. So this is our vision when it comes to data-driven business. This is our group vision when it comes to data-driven. And it says that we're deeply data-driven in our daily work, and we leverage data to develop our business. Sounds fairly straightforward, fairly easy, right? But working with this, we understand that this actually takes a lot. A lot of us who work with the topic every day, but it takes a lot of the entire company. And that's what we're going to focus on today, the ecosystem that we have to actually manage to get here. So what does it mean in practice?
We'll start off with a simplified version of a data lifecycle, including analytics. And we'll use one product that I think if you look inside your little goodie bags, you might find something familiar. Something like this, maybe. So what does it actually take then for us to be able to sell this in our stores in terms of data? So obviously, when we decide that we want to start selling new type of chocolate, we need to have a deal with a supplier of chocolate. And the journey actually starts with them providing us a whole bunch of information. We have hundreds of different kinds of attributes of data relating to this piece of chocolate. So we get some information. A lot of that information actually comes from the suppliers, because basically they know what they put into the chocolate, which we're quite curious about. But on top of that, we actually add a whole bunch of data ourselves. Like when you buy a piece of chocolate, what does it say on the receipt? That's information that we've provided. What does it say on the shelf? That's also information that we put there. That's 100 attributes more that actually needs to go into all of our systems. And all of those preferably need to be correct. So we need to have some form of validation mechanisms to make sure that the data is actually accurate. Once that is done, we're able to start ordering the chocolate from the vendor, transporting it safely to our stores or our online warehouses where we can sell it to our customers. So this is the business process side of things. But obviously there's another side of this as well. We will need to make all of this information available for analysis in our data warehouse, in the cloud, where everything goes these days. What happens then, Annie?
Okay. So the operations are working, and we now have data available for different types of analysis. It could be basic analysis, it could be all the way up to AI. But we do some sort of analysis based on the data then. But it doesn't really stop there, right? Because based on the analysis, we actually have to draw insights. And based on those insights, we have to take action. And only once we've done all of this, we can hopefully have a happy customer in the end. And on top of this, we need to learn, so we do it even better the next time. But let's actually look under the hood, because this still looks quite easy, right? It's manageable. A process flow, it's manageable, right? But again, it actually takes a lot for this to work for millions of products like we have.
So where do we then start? And this is where I usually come into the picture, because to me it really makes sense to start with the data. None of this would happen if we didn't have the data, and hopefully the data is also correct. So what is required for that to happen? Well, this is the classic view. It's not only technology, it's processes, but for most people. And I would say that let's start looking into the people. Who are these people? Who is responsible for good data? This is the question that we're all asking for, right? Well, I wish it was one person, but we have, well, if you look at data governance, like what is data governance, which for me, you could wake me up at 4:30 in the morning and I would tell you what it is, but for those of you who maybe don't know, it's actually a practical tool to be able to use to appoint responsibility for data or accountability for data. And I guess if you just said that, okay, in ICA, we probably have one person who's responsible for all of our data, who would want that job? So obviously we need to have some sort of tools of dividing all of those massive amounts of data that we have into manageable areas of data that someone in the company can take responsibility for. That's when a data domain map comes handy, which is basically then information that we have divided into areas that somehow logically cohere to each other. And you need to be a little bit practical here. You obviously want to keep looking at, okay, so it could be product information, it could be supplier information, it could be HR information, whatever. But it could be also so that you have, well, internal politics that actually force you to maybe divide data in some cases into smaller entities so that you can find that someone who will say, I am accountable for good data in this domain. But obviously we can't stop there, because this one person is probably just saying that, yes, I'm accountable. So what are you actually going to do? I don't know. I'm usually accountable for hundreds of other things as well. So who's going to do the job? So then more roles come into play. So in data governance, you actually use those roles and responsibilities as a tool to divide responsibilities, make sure that we all know what our role in this is. In general terms, the governance roles are not, full-term employees. There are additional extended responsibilities that are assigned to some individuals in the company that are suited to have those roles. And what I usually try to think about is that it's an accessory, it's a hat that you're given. It could be, I guess, sunglasses or iPhones as well, but that's also kind of a ticket for you to be included in the data governance community. So you have friends that also have these responsibilities for data. If I were to pick out one role out of all of these to really make the data hero, that would be the data steward. Now, who is a data steward? This, I think, is probably, if there is anyone here working in data governance or data management, you're probably also struggling finding those data stewards in your companies. The way we figure it around this is that these people exist. They're already out there. They're probably me in the controlling position crying over bad data. They're the people who feel the pain of bad data. But they're also probably curious about, just like I was, how on earth am I supposed to do this? So these people are probably coming from a business background. Why? Because obviously, in order for us to understand how we need to fix the data, we need to find someone who knows when the data is correct. And that is usually the person in the business. It's the person who decided to order the chocolate that you guys have in your bags. This particular chocolate is the one I want. And if that chocolate comes into our company and it's wrong, then that person would know it's wrong. And they need to do the job. Because if they tell someone else to do the job, we're just not being efficient. We're really just creating secretaries, and those we kind of discontinued for a long time ago. Okay, so these people are business savvy and they care. What's missing? Probably the know-how. So how do you actually then fix data? So data skills come in handy. Brace yourselves, it's afternoon, it's soon time for coffee, but some theory is always practical, isn't it? So just stay awake for a few minutes. So luckily, when I started Googling about data management, I realized that, okay, so I don't have to invent the wheel because Dharma has already invented the wheel. So Dharma is a non-profit organization. They've been actually active since the 1980s, so quite a long time, actually driving standardization in the area of data management. And they released this brew wheel that I think if you Google Dharma wheel, this is probably the picture that you'll see. And it's basically defining what is data management. And so you can see, there's not a word about data management in there, is it? These are actually different knowledge areas of data management. Data management is like an umbrella that sits on top of it. So all of this is data management. And if there's anything I want you to take with you when you leave this room is that data management is not one discipline. It is really how you make all of these disciplines work together. That's how you create efficiency. And trust me, you cannot achieve high quality data if you're missing any one of those pieces. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated, doesn't it? 2017, Dharma published actually the second picture, which is a lot more complex, if you wish. But it's also telling us a bit that from 2009, when the first picture was released, to 2017, we've learned a lot. We've actually understood that these disciplines are not all equal, that they actually have different kinds of roles in the bigger picture of data management. And this is kind of articulated in the second picture. So it's still an evolving area. We're not really home yet, but we've learned a lot and we don't need to start from scratch. So theory over, you survived. So do we think that the data stewards would actually then learn all of this theory? Like the Dharma release that where the wheels come from, it's actually from their book called Data Management Body of Knowledge. And trust me, it is a thick body. So now the data stewards won't read that. They don't know all of the theory, and they probably don't have practical experiences in defining data quality management or driving best practices in data quality management. That's why we've actually built a team of experts representing most of those areas that actually then collaborate with the data stewards, teaching the organization in driving best practices. We also drive a lot of our technology investments that we need to do, and we teach the data skills to our organization. Not only the data stewards, but also everyone else who's willing to know. So let's look a little bit about practice about, okay, so what is the data steward actually responsible for? This is a picture of a data lifecycle, or actually two versions of it. The orange one is the trade item, which is the piece of chocolate that you hopefully still have in your bag, unless you've already eaten it. The second one is the supplier. So obviously, each data steward is responsible for making sure that these life cycles actually run as efficiently as possible, because this is then getting the high quality data available for the business. Now, how is this then used in the business? Well, there is an interaction between the business processes and the data processes, the data life cycles. So obviously, if you have this procure to pay business process, which basically means that a purchaser has decided to start buying this piece of chocolate from a new supplier, before they can actually do that, both of those data processes need to run, so that we actually have the product in our systems, that we have the supplier information in our systems. Only then can the business person, the purchaser, actually order those goods, so that we can start delivering these into our stores. So you need to really have this understanding with you as a data steward to know what are the requirements of the business process and how can I serve those. When does the data need to arrive? When is it needed? For this, obviously, you need some tools. You can't get away from that. So what's in the data toolbox? I'm not going to give you exact names of our tooling. If you want to know more about those, come and talk to us afterwards. But I will tell you this, that in a normal company, ICA is probably a normal company, we have several hundred business applications in our system landscape. There is a heavy complexity there. And if you think that you can manage all of your data holistically with that, with, I don't know, Excel, well, I got news for you. So you need some particular tools. And I would say that you need tools for making sure that you have the same picture of what data we're actually talking about. So you need to invest in architecture so that you can model your data. You can talk about business terms and their definitions and so forth. You also probably want to have a data catalog, because in all of those 250 applications, you have tons and tons of data. Who knows where everything is? So you need to start cataloging the data so that you can actually find what you're looking for. And then when you want to start talking about like supplier data or item data, that's master data. So you probably need master data management tooling as well, which will guarantee you data quality for your master data. And that is a lot. If you've covered quality for your master data, I think you can clap yourself on the shoulder and be quite happy with your work. But on top of that, you probably want to also have data quality management tooling, which helps you monitor the data so that you can keep eyes on that it's actually maintaining its quality over time. And then we have the data platform. So this is the end, I promise you. But the data platform is really then for mass consumption of data. So obviously, when Annie and her team of analytics want to start analyzing data, we need to put the data nicely available for really this mass consumption. It needs to be in a different shape and form for analytical purposes. So that also needs to be taken care of. But this, I would still say that I'm done. Longer than this, I'm not going to go with my data management capabilities. I think this is enough.
Thanks, Maaret. Before I let you go, I mean, you've talked a lot about data skills, obviously, and going forward, that's going to be super important for so many more people. If you don't want to dig into that very thick book that you mentioned, where do you start? Do you have any tips for the audience and people?
Well, I Googled. Luckily, today, there is a lot of material online. There's a lot that you can actually learn. There are lots of material in different YouTube channels as well. One of my favorites is the Data Whisperer. Very amusing if you haven't checked him out. So Googling, but then I trust Dharma. So if you really want to go into this, I would buy the book of knowledge, body of knowledge from Dharma.
Or come to talk to her afterwards.
Yeah, you can do that too.
That's what I do when I need
I might
to
start
questions.
charging after a few. Maybe a glass of wine would do.
Okay, so we've gone through a lot of work to get that fit for purpose data so that we can actually use it. Then what? And when we talk about making use of data, I'm going to go back to the same framework that Maaret talked about. We're actually, again, going to talk about people and process and technology to support this, because we're going to need all of those dimensions to make the analytics part of this work as well. So when we talk about analysis of data, we usually describe this in a sort of maturity ladder. So starting from the beginning, what we want to look at, for example, is what happened. How much chocolate did we sell? Quite basic, but things we need to know, right? We need to follow up on how our business is doing. And then if we advance a little bit more, we can start to talk about why did it happen. So for example, maybe it was Easter, or maybe it was just really bad weather and everybody wanted to be at home watching TV, eating chocolate. Something probably made this happen, or there were things that we need to take into account when understanding what happened. Then we start looking into the future. So what's going to happen? And this is, of course, really important for, say, our stores or our logistics functions to be able to plan for how much chocolate bars should they actually buy and put on the shelves. And if we take it even one step further, we can talk about prescribing what's actually going to happen. And then now we're in the realm of advanced analytics and AI, right? So how can we increase the sales of, say, vegan chocolate? Maybe vegan chocolate is important for a better tomorrow, which is also one of our strategic goals at ICA. So we need to do all of these things, but we need to think about them perhaps a little bit differently. Perhaps we can be really efficient in how we do the more sort of straightforward tasks to make sure that we actually do have both time, prerequisites, and competencies to do the more advanced stuff, which then would build more value both for our company but also for our customers. So how do we move people up the stairs? Because it's actually people that we're talking about now. It's people doing the analysis yet. So how do we transform people? And when we talk about people, we often talk about our users, which then would be someone working with analysis somewhere in our company, right? So what we have done to sort of meet them is we've set 3 different types of personas. So we have the insight seeker. The insight seeker wants just to look at prepped reports or maybe a guided analysis that they can just get the insight straight from. Everything's there. I don't have to do that much myself. I want the insights, but I don't want to work too much for it. Then we have the explorer. The explorer probably builds like reports or dashboards themselves. They want to be a little bit more digging into the details, perhaps doing ad hoc analysis, but still on data that's fairly prepped beforehand. And then we have the deep diver. The deep diver is a very creative person who wants access to as much data as possible and very sort of flexible ways of doing analysis. Let's take this to our reality then. Let's give you some examples. Let's say we have Stina here. We can say that Stina works as a buyer at ICA. Her job is to buy the assortment, the chocolates, to make it available for our stores to buy them from us. So that's her job. She just wants to understand, how is my assortment doing? How much chocolate did we sell and why, perhaps? She looks at prepped reports. That's her main focus. Then we have Carl. Carl here, he works in our transport organization. He looks at flow optimization of transport routes. So he's building reports. He's doing ad hoc analysis, perhaps looking into specific routes that he wants to understand more about. And sometimes he actually shares his reports with his coworkers to spread the knowledge, right? And then we have Fatima. Fatima works as a data analyst supporting our marketing team. So she's really creative when it comes to finding problems to solve with data and analysis to, say, make sure that we have really good personalized offers for our customers. And the thing here is that these people aren't always the same persona. So say Stina, she's mainly an insight seeker, but sometimes she's actually an explorer. So she can move between the profiles. And that's a behavior that we want to drive. We want people to move in that direction. Not everybody and not all the time, but we think that we can do more across more people when it comes to data and analytics. So we need, again, to transform people. This is my job. I work with carrots, and I don't really work with sticks, to be honest, but maybe that's me. We need to work both with engagement and we need to work with structure to drive broad-scale transformation. So starting with the carrots then, what could a carrot be when it comes to sort of enhancing this, when it comes to people, driving this behavior? Well, We, of course, have different courses in analysis and the tools we have and all of these things. We have inspirational sessions. We have communities of practice where we make people meet and discuss different topics that they're working on or analyzing. And we also have to make sure that the reports that our organization serve to the business are easy to use, they're accessible, they make analysis and data fun, right? Really important to drive engagement. What about the steamroller then? Well, when it comes to transforming people in a large organization such as ours, we really need to have the leaders with us. We need to work with management commitment in understanding why are we doing it, why is it important for us, what can we use it for, and how does it actually connect to the strategies we have out in our business? How is this a key enabler to drive the value out in the business? So management commitment is really important. And to be able to get that, we need to work with a clear strategy, again, very clearly connected to the business strategy. Like someone said on the main stage, we're not working with technology for technology's sake. We're working with technology to make sure that we actually reach our goals as a company. And another important thing that I think is perhaps something that we haven't worked so much with before in this area is that we need to build strategic alliances across our company, because this is not a journey that a separate data and analytics function can drive. This is a company question. It's a company journey that we're on. So for example, right now, I'm working really closely to our HR function to see what should their role be in supporting our leaders, in making sure that we take the right steps when it comes to building competence, recruitment, all of those things. So again, it's very much a company journey that we're on, and we have to work very much together to actually reach our goal. Let's go back to Stina. Stina is looking at chocolate sales. She's making her analysis, but she realizes that maybe the product data and the sales data that she's looking at, it's not really enough to understand what's going to happen in the future. So she wants to add customer data to her analysis. She wants to add more around customer preferences. So what she has to do actually before she even does that is she has to go and talk to the superhero, namely the data steward of our customer data, to check, can I actually use this data? Is it okay to use this data for this type of analysis that I want to do? And lucky for Stina, the superhero says, yes, you can do it. Awesome, says Stina. She does her analysis, and it's not only enough to do the analysis, right? You actually have to draw insights from the analysis. Sometimes it's easy to just look at numbers and say, awesome, we did our job. But we have to go from that analysis to insight. So Stina actually realizes that this vegan chocolate that we talked about is probably something she should be looking at for the future. So how does this tie into the regular day at ICA then? What does analysis play in terms of a role at ICA? This is a very simplified version of Stina's work process as a buyer. She plans the assortment. I hope no one of my coworkers at purchasing is looking, but let's say that she plans the assortment, she negotiates with suppliers, and she buys the assortment. Simple as that. But then, as you all know, she made this analysis on the side, and she drew some insights that probably could help her in doing this in a better way. But unless we make sure that her process actually takes that insight into account, we're never going to go from insight to action. And the insight does not create any value. It's the action that does, right? So this is where the process comes into account. We really need to make sure that data and analysis is part of our daily processes. That's where the magic happens. That's where we get to the action. That's when all of this work that you've heard about, the data and the analysis that we've done, actually creates that value. It's in our processes. Hopefully, we then reach our goal of a happy customer with an updated assortment in our stores. And of course, we actually do need technology for the analytics part as well. So let's just go back to our personas. They have different needs. They use data and analytics in different ways. So we need to cater for that. So say the insight seeker here. She wants easy tools, accessible tools, tools that are visually attractive, and preferably they're also very close to the other digital tools that she's using in a day to make sure, again, that it's very connected to her day-to-day work. Our explorer needs tools that makes ad hoc analysis easy, gives access to prepped data, and make sure that he actually can share his insights with others. And our deep diver then. Again, we need even more flexibility when it comes to types of analysis that you can do, but also, again, access to a lot of data. And such a tool like the one Maaret talked about with a data catalog becomes really handy for someone who's searching for a whole lot of new data sets in her everyday work. So different tooling is needed to cater for all of these different needs that we have. Whew. Okay, I hope you feel free to actually eat that chocolate so you don't fall asleep. We're getting close to the end. So we have actually taken you through all of this process. We went from our supplier data, our internal data, checking that data, making sure that it actually runs through our operational processes and gets out to our customers in the stores. But then we also make use of that data in terms of modeling it, putting it in our cloud data warehouse, analyzing, drawing insights, taking actions, getting happy customers, and hopefully learning as we go.
Sonny, what would you say is the most difficult part here?
I'm actually going to say people, because it has to do with people. It has to do with people doing all of these different steps and understanding their roles in this ecosystem that we're trying to build, right? So I would say people. And to that note, it does take a village. As you can see, it's not just Maaret and I working with these questions. It does take a village to get us all the way through this system.
Luckily, because otherwise I think it would be a very lonesome job. We're happy to have friends.
Very much so. So, with that, I hope you learned something. I hope you were inspired. And do get in touch. You can register on that. We're standing just outside here. Our ICA booth is just down the stairs. Do come and talk to us. Thank you.